let's talk about culpability and accountability and why it is essential to impeach Donald J. Trump and try him in the Senate, even though he will surely be out of office before a verdict is reached. Let's start with some basic points. Donald Trump, the president of the United States, engineered a myth that the 2020 presidential election had been stolen from him. The classic big lie of fascists. He used the power of his office, our office actually, in attempts to intimidate public officials into supporting this myth. These officials included legislative leaders who he summoned from Michigan to the White House, the United States Attorney in Atlanta, whom he fired, and of course, the Secretary of State in Georgia, whom he asked to, quote, find enough votes to reverse Joe Biden's victory. None of this worked. So the president mobilized his followers to rally near the White House on January 6th, the day Congress would tabulate the electoral votes and certify Joe Biden's victory. At that rally, he told the crowd to march on the Capitol and fight for their country. And you know what happened then. 4 of the marauders and a police officer died in the violence at and inside the Capitol. In a disaster as bad as this, the first question is whether the person at the top, the commander, the corporate CEO, the president of the United States broke the law. That is a good question here, but the answer is a maybe. And on one of the most important legal questions we as progressives may not even want Trump to be found guilty of, although it sure requires some long-range vision to stick to that. Trump created this mob and sent them to the Capitol. The phrase inciting a riot has been used widely, but could he actually be convicted of that? Here is the dilemma. The Supreme Court has created a very stringent test for declaring that political speech is a crime. Did Donald Trump cross that line? Legal experts say it will be a very tough case to make. And as progressives here, this is our dilemma. We want political speech to be as free as possible. Convicting Trump of inciting the mob would further our short-run fury, but at the very least risk of narrowing the definition of free political speech. That could come back eventually to haunt us, and we see that debate. There is a better solution, though. After the Civil War, the Constitution was amended to say that anyone who had taken the oath of office to, quote, support the Constitution of the United States, end quote, and then in violation of that oath, quote, engaged in insurrection or rebellion, was barred from holding office again. This was written to keep the rebel Southerners from returning to power. But it certainly applies here to Donald Trump. He worked for months to undermine an American election, which is a pretty solid case study of sedition for the modern age, using the tools of democracy to destroy it from the inside. The impeachment resolution the House plans to take up tomorrow morning specifically cites the language I just quoted from the 14th Amendment, which was adopted in 1868. Here's the point. It would be harder to convict Trump or any other citizen under the Supreme Court's rule on political speech. Very hard, stringent. But it is a no-brainer to charge Donald Trump for violating his oath of office by a series of actions and speech that resulted in a mob ransacking the Capitol and bludgeoning people to death. 5 people. He didn't just violate his oath, he trashed it, and we all know it. Republicans know it. The most important penalty of being impeached and convicted is not losing a few days in office, but losing the right to ever hold office again, especially since he's not term limited. So it really doesn't matter whether the Senate reaches a verdict before Trump leaves office. Now, it won't be easy to convict him. It will require 17 Republicans to vote with 50 Democrats now elected to the Senate. But that vote is the second reason to impeach him. We need to have this vote. There are plenty of issues on which we can hold different points of view and still be part of one community of Americans. But this is not one of those issues. It is unacceptable for any American president or any senator or member of Congress to engage in a plot to overthrow an American election, literally by storming Congress and inciting folks who threatened to kill the vice president to get it done. We need to draw that line, and the Republican Party needs to decide which side it is on. The Republicans love to paint the left as un-American. Well, the sacking of the Capitol to disrupt the electoral vote count is as un-American as it gets, undemocratic as it gets. It is pathetic the way some Republicans are arguing that impeachment will divide the country. We are divided. What have we not been divided? We just had mobs storm the Capitol. If you don't think this is division, you're worried about more division, or are you worried about getting reelected with the Trump base, that crazy Trump base? The only way to reunite us is to be clear on what we believe and hold accountable those who violate that consensus, starting with Donald Trump. Now, Nancy Pelosi has given Vice President Pence until tomorrow morning to implement another constitutional amendment, the 25th, to relieve Trump of office and take over as acting president until Joe Biden is sworn in next week, just next week. That would get Trump's finger off the nuclear button, which, since his Twitter account was taken away, is probably the scariest tech he still has control over. We need to control his impulses. So it is hard to be against removing Trump, but impeaching him and bringing him to trial is far better than removing him under the 25th Amendment. The problem isn't that Donald Trump was unfit from day one to be president. The problem is that an entire political party enabled him in undermining our democratic norms, ripping apart institutions that are there to protect the democratic norms and whatever good rights we have. A Senate vote on Trump's guilt will force Republicans to face their own culpability. That is what is key. Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers.